All right, so today we're really diving into the human side of startups.
Okay.
With Martin Gonzalez's NUW, the Bonfire Moment.
Right.
And looking at that kind of often overlooked ingredient, that can really make or break your venture people.
Yeah, what I find so refreshing about Gonzalez's approach is how he just kind of cuts right through, all the sort of like glossy narratives that we're used to hearing.
Yeah.
And really gets to the messier side of what it means to build a company.
Absolutely.
We're bombarded with these stories of overnight successes and billion-dollar valuations.
Right.
But the reality is far more nuanced, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's like everyone's showing their highlight reel and no one wants to talk about the bloopers.
Yeah.
And, Gonzalez just cuts straight to it. He drops this truth bomb at the beginning. 65% of startups fail.
Right.
Not because of their product.
Right.
Not because of the market.
Yeah.
But because of people problems.
65%, that's more than half.
65%? That's more than half. That's huge.
Just staggering statistic.
Yeah.
It really is. It makes you stop and think.
It does.
Because, we get so caught up in the tech and the funding and the product roadmap.
Yeah.
We forget that we're dealing with human beings.
Yeah.
With all of their,
Quirks.
yeah, their motivations, their insecurities.
Yeah, it's like that saying, a team is like a family except you can't choose them.
Right.
Or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But you get the point.
Yeah.
And Gonzalez uses this really fascinating example
Okay.
to kind of illustrate how crucial this people factor is. Remember William Shockley,
Oh, yeah, the transistor.
the transistor guy, Nobel Prize winner?
Our absolutely brilliant mind.
Brilliant.
But by all accounts, a terrible manager.
Terrible manager.
Yeah.
So here's this guy revolutionizing technology, changing the world as we know it,
Yeah.
but couldn't manage a team to save his life. Right. And the result was his own team, dubbed the Traitorous Eight, walked out
Oh, no.
and founded Fairchild Semiconductor.
Wow.
Talk about a missed opportunity.
Yeah, that's a cautionary tale if ever I heard one.
Right.
And it just goes to show that, technical genius isn't enough. You've got to be able to build a team.
Yeah.
Lead a team.
Yeah.
It's almost like having this incredible superpower, but not knowing how to control it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
It's like having all the ingredients for Michelin star meal
Okay.
and then just throwing them all in a pot
Right.
without a recipe.
Yeah, you got all the potential in the world.
You're going to end up with a mess.
You're going to end up with a mess. Yeah.
Exactly.
Now you're making me hungry.
I know, right?
But yeah, so that brings us to, I think, another key insight from Gonzalez,
Okay.
which is this concept of the short game versus the long game in a startup's journey.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Okay.
What are these games and why should we care?
So the short game is all about speed.
Okay.
It's about immediate results. It's about securing that funding,
Right.
hitting those growth milestones,
Yeah.
outmaneuvering the competition.
Yeah.
It's like survival mode,
Right.
especially in those early stages.
Oh, yeah.
You're constantly putting out fires, racing toward that next milestone.
Which, let's be honest, is what we usually hear about, right?
Exactly.
The hustle and the grind.
Yeah.
The pressure to scale at lightning speed.
Precisely.
Right.
But then there's the long game.
Okay.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Right.
The long game is about building a company that's built to last,
Okay.
not just to launch.
Okay.
It's about creating a strong internal culture, investing in your team, making sure everyone's on the same page.
So it's less about the sprint and more about the marathon.
Exactly.
Okay.
But here's the catch,
All right.
and this is where Gonzalez really gets into the psychology of it all. We as humans are wired to prioritize the short game. We're hardwired for something called hyperbolic discounting.
Hyperbolic. What? That sounds intense.
Yeah, it's the fancy way of saying that we tend to overvalue immediate rewards over long-term benefits.
Okay, I think I get it.
Yeah.
So it's like when you're facing, a mountain of work,
Right.
but you're like, one more episode won't hurt.
Exactly.
We've all been there.
We've all been there.
Right.
But in the startup world, this kind of thinking can be detrimental
Okay.
because you're so busy chasing that next funding round or product launch.
Right.
You might be neglecting the very things that will ensure your company's long-term success.
Yeah.
Your people
Your people.
and the culture that you're creating.
And it's easy to see how you can fall into that trap, when the pressure's on and everyone's telling you to move fast and break things.
Right.
But Gonzalez argues that this mentality can actually lead founders into what he calls the 4 traps.
Okay.
Right.
And I think these traps are so insightful.
Yeah.
Because they highlight these really common pitfalls
Right.
that even the smartest founders can fall into.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
And it all stems from that disconnect
Yeah.
between the short game and the long game.
Okay, so let's break these traps down.
Okay.
What are they? And more importantly, how can we avoid them?
Okay, so the first one
Yeah.
is the trap of speed,
Okay.
which we've already kind of touched on.
Right.
It's that seductive idea
Yeah.
that moving fast and breaking things
Right.
is always the best strategy.
Mm-hmm.
But as Gonzalez points out, speed without a solid foundation,
Yeah.
especially in terms of your people and your culture,
Right.
it's like building a house on sand. Looks impressive at first, but
It's exact.
the moment a storm hits,
It all comes crashing down.
yeah.
And this is where Gonzalez introduces this really interesting idea
Okay.
of executive magnification,
Executive magnification.
which is essentially that a leader's habits,
Okay.
good or bad,
Yeah.
get magnified within a team. Right.
Right, and this is especially true in that high-pressure startup environment.
Makes sense. So if the founder's like, you know, pulling all-nighters, surviving on energy drinks,
Exactly.
the team's going to feel pressured to do the same.
Exactly. It sets the tone
Yeah.
for that entire company culture,
Sure.
right?
Totally.
And this can lead to, burnout, resentment,
Yeah.
and ultimately a toxic work environment,
Which no one wants.
which no one wants.
Okay, so trap number 1,
Right.
trap of speed.
Trap of speed.
What's number 2?
Number 2 is the trap of the inner circle.
Okay.
And I think this one's particularly relevant
Yeah.
in those early stages of a startup.
Because you're often working with, close friends or former colleagues.
Exact-
People you already have a strong bond with.
Exactly. And while trust is essential,
Yeah.
especially in a startup,
Right.
inner circles can easily become echo chambers,
Right.
breeding grounds for groupthink.
So everyone's just nodding along, afraid to rock the boat
Yes.
or challenge the founder's vision.
Exactly.
Even if they have doubts.
Even if they have doubts. And that is a recipe for disaster.
Right.
Gonzalez actually uses this really fascinating
Yeah.
case study based on the Chilean miner rescue
Oh, wow.
to illustrate this,
Okay.
right? So he asked teams to basically figure out the order in which to rescue the miners
Right.
based on this very limited information.
Okay.
And you know what? Teams consistently made worse decisions
Wow. Really?
than individuals.
Huh. I would have thought more brains on a problem
Right.
equals a better decision.
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
But it turns out that the social dynamics of a group,
Mm-hmm.
especially a close-knit one,
Right.
can actually hinder critical thinking.
Interesting.
People are more likely to conform
Yeah.
to the group's opinion, even if it's wrong,
Right.
to avoid conflict or appearing disagreeable.
So it's like that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Exactly.
But only if you're willing to challenge each other
Yes,
and have those tough conversations.
exactly. It's about striking that balance between trust and constructive dissent.
Okay.
And that leads us to the third trap,
Okay.
the trap of the maverick mindset.
The maverick mindset. Okay, so this is like founders who are a little bit too in love with being the rebel.
Yes,
That disruptor.
it's that romanticized notion of rejecting all hierarchy and structure.
Right.
We're not like those traditional companies
Right.
with their rules and their org charts.
We're different.
We're different.
Right. Which, let's be honest, can be a very tempting narrative.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially in tech.
Especially in tech.
Right.
But
yeah.
as Gonzalez points out, this kind of forced egalitarianism
Okay.
can backfire.
How so?
He gives examples of startups that tried to operate
Yeah.
without any clear structure,
Okay.
without a clear decision-making process.
Yeah. Right.
And it often descended into chaos.
It's like trying to conduct an orchestra
Exactly.
without a conductor.
Exactly.
Or play a game without any rules.
Right.
Everyone's just making noise and nothing gets done.
Exactly. You need,
Yeah.
while it's important to foster creativity and collaboration,
Sure.
you need some level of structure.
Yeah.
And you need some clear roles
Okay.
to avoid confusion and inefficiency.
Right. It's like freedom without boundaries is just chaos.
Yeah, you need some guidelines
Yeah.
to channel that creative energy.
Totally. Okay.
And that brings us to, I think, the final trap,
Okay.
the trap of confidence.
Okay.
And this one's particularly interesting
Okay.
because it's not just about being overconfident,
Right.
which we often associate with founders.
Sure.
It's about the entire spectrum of confidence, right? From, overconfidence all the way to
Right.
crippling self-doubt.
So you're saying that even the most outwardly confident founders
Absolutely.
can still be struggling with insecurity.
Absolutely. Think about it.
Yeah.
You're building something from scratch.
Right.
Taking huge risks. Facing constant uncertainty.
It's scary.
It's scary.
Right.
It's only natural to question yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Gonzalez actually talks about how many high-achieving founders experience something called imposter syndrome.
Mr. Syndrome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, that feeling like...
Like you're a fraud and everyone's going to find out.
Exactly.
Right.
And it can be paralyzing.
Yeah, totally.
You know, Gonzalez shares this great anecdote
Okay.
about Daniel Ek,
Yeah.
the founder of Spotify.
Okay.
Did you know he almost killed their most successful feature,
Really?
Discover Weekly,
Wow.
because of his own self-doubt?
Wow. You'd think, the founder of Spotify would be like
Right.
bursting with confidence.
You'd think so, right?
Right.
But that's the thing about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
It can affect anyone,
Right.
no matter how successful.
So interesting.
Right. And then on the flip side, Gonzalez also warns against the dangers of overconfidence,
Of course.
right? Which can lead to recklessness
Right.
and inability to learn from mistakes.
So it's like this tightrope you're walking.
Exactly.
Too much confidence and you become arrogant.
Yes.
Not enough and you're frozen by self-doubt.
Yeah, you got to find that sweet spot.
You got to find that balance.
That balance between confidence and humility.
Right.
That's so essential.
It is. And this kind of brings us to, I think, the heart of what Gonzalez is talking about,
Okay.
which is the Bonfire Moment framework.
Right.
Right. And this idea that, it's really about giving you the practical tools
Yes.
to navigate all of these people problems
Yeah.
and actually build a company that's not only successful,
Right.
but also has a really healthy, thriving culture.
That's the key.
Right. Because one without the other,
Exactly.
it's not going to work.
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. Right. Okay. So we've talked about the problems.
Right.
We've talked about, these traps that people fall into. What does Gonzalez actually offer in terms of solutions? What is this bonfire moment?
Imagine this. You gather your team
Okay.
for a day. You step away from the daily grind,
Right.
and you have this very structured, facilitated workshop
Okay.
where you address all of those unspoken issues,
All right.
those simmering tensions that everyone just pretends aren't there.
It's like hitting the reset button
Exactly.
on your team dynamic.
But it's not just about, venting or having this kind of kumbaya moment.
Right.
Gonzalez provides a really clear framework
Okay.
with specific activities and exercises
Right.
designed to unearth those hidden assumptions and establish that shared understanding.
So it's like a team building exercise,
Yeah.
but like on steroids.
Exactly.
At actual lasting impact.
Exactly. And one of, I think, the most powerful activities
Okay.
is this idea of a user guide.
A user guide. Okay.
So essentially, each team member creates a user manual for themselves,
Oh, it's
right? They outline their working style, their communication preferences.
That's right.
Even down to like their pet peeves,
Okay.
their kryptonite.
Yeah.
Those things that really throw them off their game.
I love it. It's like giving your teammates a cheat sheet.
Exactly.
Understanding you better.
And it forces everyone to be more self-aware
Right.
and articulate their needs.
Yeah. I like it. Okay. What else?
And then there's this other activity called the bullshit circle,
The bullshit circle.
which sounds a little harsh,
Okay.
but it's actually about creating this safe space for vulnerability.
So you're calling out all the BS
In a way.
that
yeah.
we often encounter in the workplace.
It's about dropping the masks,
Right.
right? Being honest about our insecurities and our fears.
Right.
And I think this is so important because it helps to break down
Yeah.
that brag culture that's so prevalent,
Yeah.
especially in the startup world.
Everyone's pretending to have it all figured out.
Exactly.
Right.
Which, let's be honest, is exhausting.
It's exhausting and it's not sustainable.
Exactly, because when you're not being honest with yourself and your team,
Right.
it creates this breeding ground for misunderstandings and resentment.
So you're saying that vulnerability is actually a superpower
Absolutely.
when it comes to building a strong team.
Because when people feel safe to be themselves,
Right.
to admit their weaknesses, to ask for help,
Yeah.
that's when real trust and connection happens.
This has been so eye-opening. I feel like I need to go get my hands on this book like immediately.
That's a good one.
But for someone listening, maybe who's feeling a little bit overwhelmed by all of this,
Right.
what's like the one takeaway
Yeah.
that you want them to leave with?
Building a company is about so much more
Yeah.
than just the product or the technology.
Right.
It's about the people
It is.
and investing in your team's well-being,
Yeah.
fostering open communication, creating a culture of trust.
Right.
These aren't just nice to haves.
No.
These are essential ingredients for long-term success.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, right? Alone we can go fast, but together we can go far.
Yeah.
But I feel like a more accurate version of that today would be, alone we can go fast and crash and burn.
Right.
But together
Yeah.
with the right approach,
Yeah.
we can actually get somewhere worthwhile.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
This has been such a great deep dive.
It has been fun.
It's given us so much to think about.
Absolutely.
So, remember, building a startup is a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
Take the time to invest in your team, build those relationships, create a company culture where everybody can thrive.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
It's been a pleasure as always.
We'll see you next time.
It's your